The information presented is for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are not necessarily the opinions of any Daikin company. This information should not be confused for accounting, legal, medical, or other professional advice. Please seek advice from a qualified professional for any specific questions.
Welcome to the Accelerated HVAC Success program. My name is Ben Middleton. I'm the National Sales Training Manager for the Goodman, Amana, and Daikin brands. Today, I am joined with Josh Griffin. Josh, thank you so much for joining us here today. How in the world did you get into HVAC?
So I started out, actually was an electrician, and after chasing jobs, and I finally found HVAC and fell in love with it. And I actually own a heating and air business now, small business in Virginia.
Okay.
And after doing that for a while, I saw a disconnection, if you will, or a gap in our industry where a lot of manufacturers and contractors seem to not necessarily connect to the customer as well as they could. And so that opened the door to, I now host a YouTube channel where we try to bridge that gap a little bit. I actually read a statistic before I came where 70% of homeowners do some sort of online research before they make a purchase today. And so I think that's because of that disconnect. I think if contractors and even manufacturers bridge that gap better in the future, consumers might not feel the need to do that as much.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because I love statistics and facts that are out there, and I read all kinds of different ones, and one of them that I heard is people know more about funerals and caskets than they do about heating and air conditioning, because you will spend more time shopping for a casket than you will in your entire life shopping for a heating and air conditioning system. And I just, I really had to think about that, but the average homeowner buys a heating and air conditioning system maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times out of their whole entire life, and they're in the market for 3 days. So that means 9 days total they think about heating and air conditioning. Yet it is so important to the way we live our life. It's what allows us to sleep comfortably at night. It's what allows us to be able to be in our shelter that we have, our home, and taking care of us. I heard that you were selected, though, as the top 40, under 40, by the ACHR News. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that their system is broken if they're selecting guys like me. So it's funny. I grew up pretty meager. I grew up in a trailer park, and I learned how to fix air conditioners. And along the way, I started making a few YouTube videos. And so somewhere along the way, I must have said something enough for them to select me. But in reality, I feel like, you brought up the industry and how we're, I think the biggest thing with heating and air is, unlike, say, caskets or funerals or even the car industry, I think our industry, it's not so much that they don't buy the product that often. I think that's part of it. But I also think our industry, unlike a lot of industries, is changing very fast. I mean, just in the last 5 years, it's changed so much just in the last 5 years in comparison to the 50 years before that. And I think that, in an industry that's changing so fast and consumers already feel like they're at a disadvantage, whether that's because of, maybe people not doing things correctly or with their best interests at hand, I would say that, that's a big part of it. With all the new technologies and all the new refrigerants and all the new products, Daikin has done a great job trying to bridge that gap too. But even they're at a disadvantage when they're, coming out with all these new great products all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talk a lot about how just change is accelerating. It's getting faster and faster, the amount of change that we have. And you think about just 100 years ago, majority of homes that were in North America were still heated with wood. And then we moved to coal, and then from coal to oil, and then from oil to natural gas. And now we're talking about going to electrification and electric. And so we have seen all of these great changes. You talk about refrigerants. We started out with ether, alcohol, and ammonia, all really great refrigerants. The only problem was there were fatalities associated with them. So we moved away from those refrigerants. Then we went to R12, then we were worried about the ozone layer, and we moved to R22 and then to 410A. And now we're looking at global warming potential and how we impact that. And so now we're looking at the A2Ls that we're looking to go into, with R32 being the one that we've selected as a manufacturer. There is so much change in the industry today in terms of technology, in terms of the skill sets that you need to have. And so tell me a little bit more about the disconnect that consumers have from our industry, even though they interact with our systems every single day.
Yeah, I tell you, when I first started making, well, let me back up a little bit. Before I ever made a YouTube video for a homeowner, I had made a few. I had made, maybe on a product that we were selling at my small business, and I had dabbled with it. And I had a lady call me one day, and she said, "Hey, you're not in my coverage area, but I've got a few questions, And so I started giving her some information, third-party advice. I'm not trying to sell her something, just being honest on a few things. And she said, nobody has ever told me anything like what you're saying. No one is telling me, this information. I'm about to make this big purchase, and I feel like there's, no one out there sharing what you're telling me right now." And so that's when the YouTube channel that I now host, it's called HVAC Guide for Homeowners. That's how it all was born, trying to inform homeowners of some of the things that, maybe they're not getting elsewhere. When you have a contractor in your home and they're trying to give you information, even subconsciously, their walls are up because they know they're trying to be sold something. And, so, that's one of the goals with our channel, is we're trying to bridge that gap. I know Daikin is trying to bridge that gap. They're doing things like this and so on. And, I think it's going to get better as time goes on, but that's been a big part of what's missing, I feel like, in our industry.
So tell me a little bit, what are some of the big things that homeowners are looking for in a YouTube channel like what you've started and put together? That homeowner that called you, what are the questions that they have?
I think that the first thing is there's sometimes an education standpoint, right? So they are being hit with SEER ratings or new refrigerants. So that's part of it, trying to educate them on a few things. If they're comparing two different heating and air brands or two different heating and air systems, and they're being hit with all these terms they've never heard. One of the things I've noticed too is sometimes because I have a website where we'll actually help homeowners through the decision-making process, and it's called newhvacguide.com. And so a lot of the folks that'll go to our website, we will sometimes be giving them the exact same broken record information because they're using terms that, I'll even say to them, I'll say, well, to you, what does that term mean? They'll say words like hybrid heating and air. And I'll say, well, what does that mean to you? Because that's not a term that I use for any of our products.
Right.
And so I just think that, aside from the education, I think that, that third party, transparent, walls down opinion, if you will, because some of my stuff, it is an opinion, right? I mean, you like Ford, I like Chevrolet. Everybody has their own opinion. And so I think that's part of it too, just trying to give them an opinion that has no motivation behind trying to sell them something. And, that's why they'll sometimes turn to our channel.
I know back when I used to be doing in-home sales and I was working with a lot of homeowners, there were all kinds of interesting terms that we have in our industry, and we take it for granted inside of our industry, but homeowners really get fascinated. The more stories that we can tell, the more it brings them in, and I know you're doing a fantastic job with that in our industry. I used to love to tell, how, people would say, well, I'm going to bring a 2-ton air conditioner. Well, how in the world are you going to lift that into my backyard? A 2-ton air conditioner? That sounds really heavy.
All right.
Well, we got 2 guys that can carry the 2-ton air conditioner. And to talk about, well, that actually means that back in the day, it was 2 tons of ice that we'd put in your attic and blow fans across it. And you need 2 tons delivered every 24 hours to cool this space that we have. And those stories resonate as homeowners start to get that little bit of information. It really helps to help them understand our terminology, and we take it for granted. Unfortunately, even on our industry side, we have so many new people coming into the industry. They have no idea where these terms come from. The number of new technicians I talk to and ask, okay, what does AFUE stand for? Or what does SEER stand for? And how do they arrive to it? And what does it mean to a homeowner? And so I think it's great that you're bringing all this stuff out. What are some of the best ways you see that contractors can connect with homeowners?
Well, I think that, let's be honest, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel if they were able to bridge the gap, right? So they need to obviously educate the homeowner. We used to have what was called years ago the kitchen table moment, right? Where you would sit down with them at the kitchen table, you would explain what you were selling, you would explain how it works, and all that stuff. I feel like those moments are not there anymore, partly because of the society we have today. We don't do business at the kitchen table, or some families don't eat at the kitchen table as much as they used to. And so I think that if contractors were to connect with the customer better, not just sell boxes, right? To actually, explain explain how to use the thermostat, right? That's something that I feel like a lot of guys, they should take a little more time to do that,
Tell me a little bit. You've been a Daikin contractor for how long now?
Good question. I think we're getting close to 4 years now.
Why Daikin?
So Daikin has, and this is nothing you don't know, right? But I think Daikin has a couple things. I think the first thing is they offer something that maybe the next guy doesn't, right? They have their 12-year warranty and some of their unit replacement warranties, even lifetime warranties on certain products. So that's the first thing. They also have a dealer program, and I know you've interviewed Alicia, and she knows way more about this, so I don't want to, get into all the details. But I think the thing that I notice about their dealer program is they want to help contractors grow. Like, I've worked with other brands. I didn't just, decide that Daikin was who I wanted to use, and now that's what I push. We talk about Daikin on my YouTube channel a lot because I decided that they were a great fit for us because of some of these programs. I'll give you a good example. We've worked with brands that they want to charge you a fee just to sell their products or be a part of their dealer program. And so just across the board, a lot of their programs are meant to help us grow in the end. And I think that, that philosophy in general shows through with a lot of those programs.
For you, really, it's about just that relationship that you have with Daikin and their commitment to helping you grow. And so you, in return, have been working with them. It's that simple for you?
I think that we could all say, we talked about, you like Ford, I like Chevrolet, right? So I think we could all probably point to a product or a brand and say, that's what I'm going to hang my hat on, right? And I think Daikin does a good job. They make some great products. They make some, things that you could certainly hang your hat on, not just the warranties and not just the products. But in today's day and age, I think just keeping it simple with all the new technologies coming out, all the new, products and all the, innovations, I think just, keeping it simple for the customer and trying to bridge that gap so that way they do understand that at the end of the day, they're making a good decision when they choose whatever decision they make.
So are there any other reasons why you've chose to partner with Daikin?
I think that when a contractor does business with anybody, so not just the dealer or not just the brand that they choose, I think that most good heating and air companies are trying to offer what I would say is a cookie, right? So they, we always hear about, grandma's homemade cookies and how they have the homemade recipe that no one else has, right? And I think Daikin has several cookies that no one else offers. They, we talked about warranties, but they also offer, several innovations. They came up with the VRV technology that we know today. And so I think that just having something that the next company or the next guy does not offer is really where they stand alone. They're blazing a trail, if you will, with a lot of their innovations and products.
So you mentioned the technology like the VRV. Do you see that playing a role in all of this as far as Daikin in the industry here in North America?
with VRV and with, the AI is starting to make its way into our industry, new refrigerants we've already talked about. There's a lot of new technologies out there. And, as I said, I think Daikin has done a good job of just kind of leading the way on a lot of these. They don't follow suit in a lot of cases. And so I think that the biggest thing with new technologies coming out, it's one thing to say, oh, well, we've come out with this new technology or we have this thing that the next guy doesn't offer, but being able to bridge the gap, I think there's one example I could use is I've noticed that Daikin doesn't try to win awards when it comes to SEER ratings, right? Because they understand that it's not just about how high the SEER is. There's also something to be said for the performance of the system too. And so I've noticed that they try to meet the customer where they are and try to provide good solutions to their problem rather than trying to just, be ridiculous with some of their, ratings or whatever.
So what things are you working on now? Do you have any new projects that you're working on and trying to connect with customers?
So we're going to continue our relationship with Daikin. Daikin let us come behind closed doors a couple months ago. And so that's been exciting. And we're going to continue that as well. Try to show homeowners things that they can't be shown elsewhere, right? We're also, with our website, New HVAC Guide, we're going to build that out more too. So we're going to try to, again, continue to show homeowners things that they can't get elsewhere and continue to bridge that gap that we were talking about. And the last thing is we're working on a few programs where we're hoping to bridge the gap with contractors as well. So, we've got a program where contractors can meet, and we call them masterminds, and they can have a roundtable discussion with some other contractors and maybe bounce ideas off of one another. It's something we've done already, and it seems to do really well. It's not necessarily a speaker from stage saying some fancy sales tactic. You can talk to other guys that are out there fighting the same fight that you are. And so that's a few of the things that we're working on. I think the last thing I'll say is our YouTube channel is, we're going to continue to help that along as well. So we're hoping to continue to show homeowners things that they can't get elsewhere. And that's really been the idea, right? There's other YouTube channels. There's guys that are fixing air conditioners and recording it. My goal through the whole process has always been to try to show homeowners something that they can't find elsewhere, or show them things like behind closed doors here at Daikin.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming out here. For all of you out there, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and like it, share it. And if you'd like to see more episodes like this, go ahead and follow us, and we'll make sure that you stay in touch with all of the latest episodes that we have. Josh, thanks you so much for coming in here.